Today's episode of Pit Stop with Don and James, we are going to talk about a crash between Yuki Tsunoda and Pierre Gasly. We're going to talk about a great launch and a P1 for Oscar Piastri. And we'll cover Charles Leclerc with some excellent passing. Thanks for joining us on Pit Stop with Don and James. I'm Don, and
I'm PK, guest star.
We got guest star PK, Patrick, as I know him. And we are recording immediately following the Jeddah Grand Prix from Saudi Arabia. We are doing this without James again this week. We've got our before mentioned guest Patrick with us. James is again busy with his family activities, so he'll be back for us next week. But we've been really excited to have Patrick come in here the last couple of episodes to talk Formula One, and so yeah, we had an eventful week with the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. It was I thought a fun race. I've said it before. It's about my favorite track on the calendar, and the reason that it's my favorite track is because it's such a fast track. It is a lot of high speed turns, and we'll be talking a little bit more about that in a minute. But there typically isn't a lot of overtaking, but I would say we saw a fair bit of action in the race this week. What'd you think, Patrick?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there was a lot of movement, especially further back in the field. There was I kept track of every pass, and my by lap summary is like signs over Stroll, Bear over Doohan, just all the way down.
Yeah.
Like there was a ton of passing. It was an interesting race. It was a lot different than last week, but it was exciting. There was a lot going on.
Yeah, I agree. And anytime that you have a fast track and overtakes, I think that's a good combo. I should say too, I don't know if you totaled up the number of overtakes, but I felt like a fair amount of them went just to Lewis Hamilton, and he was battling. Who was he overtaking? Was it Norris?
Yeah, there was one where there was like over 3 laps, they passed each other back and forth numerous times.
I made a note. Yeah,
I'm trying to find where that is.
It was Lando and Lewis, and it was a little DRS battle that they were doing where Lewis was getting out of the way or letting Lando pass him just before the DRS zone.
Yep.
And then he'd take DRS and pass him again. So that was kind of a funny back and forth there. That
it was laps 13, 14, and 15 was when that happened.
That's what I've got. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, so that just a funny little anecdote there from the race that kind of highlights that there was a lot of action, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
For this race in particular, I remember, I was thinking about how much I really like this track, but a lot of the pundits that I hear talking and others that I've, my friends and things that I chat with on about Formula One, it's not known for an overtaking circuit, but there was actually a few really nice passes throughout the race. But anyway, before we get into the actual race, I was sort of noticing a couple of things. There was a couple of things we could probably talk about real quick. One was in practice one, Pierre Gasly snagged the fastest time on track ahead of the McLarens, and that was pretty surprising. The Alpine may be putting something together. What do you think?
Yeah, it was good to see. I'm a Alpine fan. I know I'm wearing a Red Bull hat, but I definitely like Gasly. Doohan has shown sparks, but I think Gasly has the pace to get the most out of that car. So seeing him top practice like that was pretty good to see. Definitely. I feel bad for him because he was starting pretty high up in the order. I think he was 6th off the grid. when the lights dropped and Yuki took him out. That's one of the things I kind of want to talk about at some point today is, I come from an IndyCar background, and the rules going into a corner when you have two cars going in are a lot different, I think, than in Formula One. So I'm hoping you can kind of help me understand, the Piastri and Max pass on lap one, turn one. And then also, I feel like when Yuki turned, he was turning wide, and then you've got Gasly, and then he clipped his wheel, and I mean it was over at that point. But he didn't give him any room. I mean, Gasly would have had to leave the track to be able to not get hit. So I don't really understand how stuff like that works in Formula One as much.
I wish I could tell you that I knew with 100% certainty, but I think anytime there are incidents in Formula One, I've noticed that there's quite a bit of inconsistency with how things are adjudicated. And so here's my take, on the Gasly incident, and I guess we'll lead right into the Max and Oscar thing after that. But so at first glance, when I first saw the incident between Gasly and Tsunoda, so I guess the listeners should know, like, there was a crash. It was the one and only crash that happened during the race, and it ended the race for Pierre immediately, and then Yuki, I think, was able to get the car going and went back around the track. But when they pitted him, the mechanics assessed that there was too much damage to the car. They didn't want to risk putting it back out there. So the retirement of both of those vehicles, and was it in turn 3? I can't remember exactly which turn.
Yeah, it was turn 3. Yeah.
Yeah, it was right at the beginning of the race. And
lap 1, turn 3. Yeah.
So what happened was, at the first thing that I noticed, it looked to me like it was completely Yuki's fault. It just seemed like Pierre, Yuki was kind of in Pierre's like blind spot, I guess you could call it. And yeah, Pierre moved a little bit, but there was no way he could have known that Yuki was right there. Okay. And so then so it was Yuki's right front hit Pierre's back left, and they both spun out. Pierre hit the wall pretty hard. So I would say that was my first impression, was like, dang it, Yuki, what'd you do? But then after they showed the replay a couple of times, you could kind of see that it was actually in the process of a pass. So I don't know if that adds a little bit of complexity to how it was, how they ruled on it, or what they would, how they were going to look at it. I actually didn't really hear what the final word was from the stewards, because after the race, they put it off till the end of the race. They said they weren't going to rule on it until after the race, and after the race was over, I didn't stay tuned in, so I don't know what happened from that standpoint. But what I saw was, Yuki had position. Pierre went to pass him and overtake into turn 3, and he didn't fully clear him and had to turn left in order to make the rest of the turn, which I think turns back to the right, and Yuki was still in the way. So I don't really know. Like, I think it really seemed like a racing incident, what that they call it, where it's just like it just happened and there's no further punishment. I mean, that's what it kind of looked like to me. I didn't really blame either driver, to be honest. I mean, Yuki, it didn't look to me like Yuki really like moved into Pierre so much as Pierre moved, and he hadn't fully cleared Yuki yet. That was kind of what it looked like to me. I don't know. What did you think, Patrick?
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind, I look at everything through IndyCar eyes. So what would, how would the IndyCar officials, what would they do in that situation? Probably the penalty for Yuki, just because of how much farther ahead Gasly was, the one that's interesting to me is with Max and Piastri going into that turn. Max got a bad launch, which I think it's because the lights went out so fast. Normally there's like a hesitation, when the fifth light comes on, and then there's like a second and a half, and it was like they were out. So I don't think he was ready. And then they start going, and Piastri had the jump on him. Clearly he had the jump going into turn 1. But then going back into turn 2 where they're turning back, maybe Piastri's a little bit ahead, But like in IndyCar, you're in there, like you're the inside car, you know, you don't have a responsibility to back out of that. Like they were so close to being side by side. I don't know that Max could have backed out of it. Really the thing to me, the right thing he should have done was just keep his left wheels over, and if he touches them. I mean, I know he's racing; they're both racing for a championship, so it matters to not do that. But him being run off the road, and he said on the team radio, like, he ran me off the road. I actually agree with him. He did run him off the road. From Piastri's standpoint, you know, he probably sent it a little bit too much. He being Max probably sent it a little too much into corner two, because I think he knew that was probably going to be the race right there. Like that first, you know, trio of corners was really going to dictate most of the race for those two. I think whoever was ahead was going to have the huge advantage, but I don't know. Like I said, my IndyCar eyes say that Max had every right to be there because he was far enough up that he doesn't need to back out of it. And that, Piastri kind of moved over on him. But I've noticed that in Formula One, that they do that a lot, where if someone's trying to pass you, they drive very defensively. They'll take you way out, way outside the track limits. Like they'll run you off the road, like all that stuff. So it's probably just a different officiating rule book.
I can tell you this with quite a bit of confidence. If those two cars were swapped and Max was on the inside, he would not have given 1 inch to Oscar to let him over. I think that the ruling kind of was right. I think maybe Max should have given the place back, is what should have happened, instead of waiting for the 5-second penalty. I think that the way that it's typically adjudicated and viewed is, who's leading going into the corner, you have the right to the apex, and the person behind has to yield. And Oscar it was, albeit just a nose ahead of Max at that point. It wasn't a big a lead or anything into the corner, but I think that that's what the steward saw, is that he had the lead and therefore had the corner, and he didn't have to go in any further than he did. He took up the whole track. What that implies, I think, is that then Max should have hit the brakes and come in behind Oscar instead of taking the runoff. I mean, he could have taken the runoff, but he can't gain the advantage in the runoff. So that's what he did, is he took the advantage and the runoff and took the advantage. If he would have slowed down and let Oscar by, which does not sound like a Max thing to do, but had he done that, he probably would have avoided the penalty. The question then becomes, would he have been closer than he was, and made it more of a race had he given the place back? I don't know. I don't know that we'll ever know that one.
Yeah, in Australian supercars, that's called redress. When if you do something wrong and get in front of somebody illegally, as it were, redress is you basically slow down and let them get back around you. And if you do that, then the stewards don't assess a penalty to you. That's a supercars rule. But I think Formula One's kind of the same thing, where, to your point, if he let him back around, which, if he had done that, he might have actually still won the race, because he was outpacing me, especially in the early part, like the first stint, he was outpacing Piastri pretty well. It wasn't until later when when he came out of the pits after the penalty, he got caught behind Hamilton, and then Hamilton slowed him up enough that he never was able to get back into like DRS range and all that, because that's really the key for Max. So yeah, I mean, Piastri drove another great race. I mean, he's at the top of his game right now. And I thought it was very interesting that late in the race, he went over the team radio and was like, I'm getting dirty air from Norris. Like, you got to get him out of my way. And Norris has been the top dog for so long there that it's like almost like a changing of the guard, where even though Norris was at the time leading the championship, when he said that, it's like, yeah, but he's going to win the race. Like, Piastri's going to win. We got to get him out of there. So, out with Norris, in with Piastri.
Yeah. I mean, it could very well swing that way in their team. And I don't know what that'll mean for Lando. I don't know if he seems like a sensitive guy. I don't know if he's going to take it hard or power through, graciously become the number 2 driver. But it's kind of funny. I've been watching through the last season of Drive to Survive on Netflix, and I've just been in this section of the series where they're talking about McLaren and what is going on with their drivers, and it's lining up exactly with what's going on this season too. They were really the last episode I watched. They were talking about Zach Brown trying to have this culture there where they don't have a number 1 driver, and all the other team principals are like, you need to have a number 1 driver, like doing two. It's like the dual quarterback system, in the NFL. It never works out. Like it's the same thing in Formula One. You have to prioritize somebody, and Oscar right now is looking like, I mean, he's in the lead of the drivers' championship. He's won 2 races this year. And, if Lando doesn't get back on the horse pretty quick, it could swing to him. I think Oscar we've talked about this on previous episodes, Oscar has this coldness or coolness or whatever, he doesn't seem to get rattled by much. And so it might be that if he's bringing the fight to Max, he might be more equipped to deal with a Max type. If he's willing to run Max off the road right there at turn 1, I think Lando in the past has backed out of stuff like that. So kind of interesting. I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic. And Oscar, I like Oscar. I like this guy. He is a really good driver, and he's very, very young. And so yeah, I think things are looking up for McLaren. And if you've got a hungry Lando as your number 2, that's not bad. He'll win some races, I think. So, and who this is the other thing. Lando drove from P10, which was because he crashed, in qualifying during Q3. So, made a mistake, crashed, started P10, and got all the way up to P4. So. And it wasn't an easy P4, I don't think either. He had to overtake he had to overtake George Russell to get that P4 and Russell was driving well all day. So, I'm talking like this, like Lando. I don't want to come off like Lando's no good, because he's a very good driver, and he had a good day, all things considered. And hopefully, he just doesn't bin the qualifying session next time. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, he is a good driver, but to your point, I think Piastri really is starting to come into his own, make a name for himself in a way he hasn't done in the previous 2 seasons. This his 3rd year? I think it's his 3rd season.
Oscar, yeah, this is his 3rd season. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he's really I think he's really starting to kind of get under the car, get the car under him to,
and he was lucky to come in as a rookie in a team that fairly quickly put together an awesome car, the fastest car on the grid. I mean, that's just luck, but he himself is making the most of that luck.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a note here that Alpine, I mean, I always root for them. Doohan was dead last of the cars that were that were actually running. He got lapped late in the race. I don't know if you caught that.
Yeah.
Him and Lance Stroll, I think, got lapped. And then, of course, Gasly was out turn 2 or 3 and lap 1. So, yeah, they didn't have a good day. Some of the other teams, Williams, I think James will be happy about how Williams did this week.
Yeah, 2 cars in the points. What were they, not 8 and 9 or 9 and 10, something like that?
I think they were. Yeah, I want to say 8 and 9, because 10 was
10 was Hadjar. Yeah. Good day for Hadjar.
He actually had a good day too. Hadjar did. He was moving forward the whole day. I think Antonelli did okay. Liam Lawson did okay. He wasn't too bad.
In the end, he made it up. Lawson, I was watching it. At one point he was way back there, like in the bottom 5, and then he somehow ended up as P12 and Hadjar P10. I don't know that it still is kind of a bad look for Lawson to get beat by Hadjar, but Hadjar continues to impress. I think he's a solid driver. I really, when everything's said and done, I'm going to feel it still feels bad that in that first race. I don't know if you
Yeah.
saw the first race. He spun out in the formation lap because it was raining and
Yeah, I
just didn't
did.
even get to compete in that Australian GP. But yeah,
Yeah, he
he
was wasn't he really upset too? Like it really upset
very
him.
upset. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, you
which
can imagine.
I would be upset too. You know what I
If
mean?
you your first race, he had qualified well and he was going out there and then
Yeah.
just in a very embarrassing way go out of the race. But yeah,
Yeah.
the Williams were 8 and 9, and Sainz outperformed Albon. So,
Yeah.
that's good news, I think. And they were even commenting on the broadcast about Albon, or sorry, Sainz. He brought this DRS train philosophy, where
Mhm.
if you're running in consecutive positions on a team and you can stay within DRS range if there's not a big gap, and then you just kind of like keep the DRS going, and that puts the person behind you, even if they're in DRS range, they're stuck trying to compete with another car going into DRS. So it holds
Yeah.
cars back. And they were talking about how that he brought that strategy. That was something he used to do at Ferrari. So yeah, I think that's good, and I think that's good. I mean, when at this stage, when we see Williams scoring both cars in the points,
Mhm.
that's huge. This didn't used to happen for them over the last several seasons, and so maybe this is a sign that they're on the right track now.
Yeah.
2026 regs that are going to change. I think it'll be interesting to see if that throws them backwards, but hopefully not. I think they're investing early time
Mhm.
and resources to develop that 2026 car, kind of the way that Aston Martin is. And gosh,
Yeah.
I hope Aston Martin is really going at it full bore because they look terrible this year.
Yeah, they just yeah, it's really like I mean I talked about it last week, just seeing Alonso like that just I don't like
Yeah,
it. It's
it's not
unnatural.
good. He finished P11, so he's one position outside the points, which I guess may be
Mhm.
something. But Stroll was nowhere near the points. He was down in 16th, and
Yeah,
he was
yeah.
one of 4 cars that got lapped. So
Yep.
now another disappointment on this year was the Haas team. They finished 13th and 14th.
Yep.
Behrman beat Ocon in the standings there, but they had after a couple after scoring good points, I think all throughout the season, including double points finish last week, to have neither car in the points was a bit of a bust.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. Sauber didn't do very well, I don't think either. I mean, a lot of the back half cars, 11 through 18. I mean, obviously 19 to 20 were already retired by then, but 11 through 18, there were, like I said, a lot of passing. There was a lot going on back there. Um, but yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, really, really, I would say Williams is the only one that really has, reason to smile. Although, I mean, I don't really consider Ferrari a bottom half team. They're a top half team. But Leclerc had a great drive today. Um, I think he even said it in the post race. I'm not sure how much of the interviews you watched, but I watched a bit of it. He basically said like I'm surprised to get a podium today. Like he didn't think that was even going to happen. So I thought he had a great race. And Norris like he was trying to get him at the end. He couldn't do it. Leclerc kept him behind him, which was pretty impressive. Pretty impressive drive. So yeah, it was good.
Norris pitted very late, had fresh tires, and I think given maybe a couple more laps, he could have snuck out a P3. But yeah, you're right. Leclerc was great, and Leclerc, I mean, that guy is a good driver. I mean, there's no doubt about it. This guy is a talented guy. Let's while we're on Ferrari, do you have some thoughts about Hamilton?
I mean, I'm gonna say, well, first of all, I will acknowledge that he's arguably the best driver of all time in Formula One. I mean, you could argue that. I mean, just given his track record and his success that he's had, right? Um, I don't think it's because he was just at Mercedes when Mercedes was dominant. I think there's a lot more to it than that. And watching him race today, where he chose when to pass, to keep ahead. He understood, using the zones to his advantage, all of that stuff. Like he knows what he's doing out there. He's a veteran. He's an ace out there. Um, I don't know why, but I get the sense he's struggling with the car.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like a setup thing. He hasn't really like, he doesn't have a good relationship with his engineer yet. Like they don't know how to communicate yet. Something like that, maybe. Um, in IndyCar, it takes, several races, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 races until you really speak the same language when it comes to like setup and, you know, how to communicate during a race and strategy and things like that. So maybe that's what it is. I don't know. What do you think?
I think I, you're right. He has displayed great racecraft at times. He won that sprint race, so it's been these flashes of brilliance, and I hope it's not just that's not what we're saying about his season. And if it is, I hope that he's on a trajectory so that next year he goes in and can give it the 100% go. Because he finished P7 today. I mean, it's not a great finish for Hamilton on any given day, and it looks like the Ferrari was capable of more. So, I hope this isn't what we're seeing is not the demise. I want him to be challenging for that eighth championship. I think that's maybe one of the best storylines we could have in Formula One. And he almost got it, probably should have got it that year when Max was the beneficiary of a Latifi crash on the last race of the season. And so that was insane. And then it's just like ever since then, Lewis hasn't been anywhere close to the championship. So anyway, I've got this like little bit of a pit in my stomach thinking that we may have seen the best days of Lewis Hamilton behind him, and I'm hoping I'm wrong about that. But that's kind of the sense I'm getting it with some of these sort of mediocre finishes, especially if we start to see Leclerc on the podium or winning, and him if he's not within a position or two, that's going to be kind of a bitter pill to swallow.
I mean, is this the fourth race or the fifth race of the season?
This was round 5, I think.
Okay, so when it's round 10, and if you get today's result round 10, then I'd start to worry about Hamilton.
Yeah.
Until then, I think he's just too new to the team right now.
Coming to terms with the grip or the team in the car. Yeah, you're probably right. I'm hoping that's the case, and very well could be. I mean, Leclerc's been around for a long time. Now, speaking of Leclerc and the team, did you hear the team radio? That was one of the funniest things I think I've ever
Charles
heard.
Bryan thing.
Yeah. So Charles pulls a really nice overtake, right? Who did he overtake? It was George on lap 38.
Yeah.
And it was a nice move. He came right up to the guy's gearbox and then around, and then his engineer came on and said that, that was really nice or whatever. And Charles goes, "Thank you, Brian." It was so dry and so good. I love that. I was cracking up.
Yeah.
Anyway. It's
hard not to like Leclerc. He's one of the guys that stands out to me.
Yeah.
I think I said last week, there's a couple that I kind of like. Most of them, I'm just kind of in it to see, how people do. Gasly's kind of up there. Leclerc. Max, just because I think technically speaking, I think he's the best driver in the field. Just skill set. Put them all in identical cars, he'll probably win. But yeah, it's hard not to like Leclerc.
Max is the guy who like you love him because of the talent, the raw, just pure racing talent, and there's no doubt about it. I mean, the guy is ruthless and good, and I mean, I'm the way that I'm describing him sounds villainous, but it's like he's like he's doing what you should do as a racing driver.
He's 100%.
This is not a faint-hearted sport. No professional sport really is. You gotta have that step on the throat mentality. So Max, for that. But the guy is, otherwise very little in what you would say a likable personality. Every now and then, like they show him playing paddle or one of these games or just BSing with the other guys, and I think he seems just like a normal dude. But yeah, he definitely seems to also have this. A little bit of a crusty.
Yeah, I mean, you'll never hear him say on a racetrack, "No, after you." Like he'll never do that. Yeah. He'll always stick the car into the corner.
Going
which we saw today.
going back to the Drive to Survive episode I was watching, there was an incident that happened last year where the two McLarens were, they were 1-2, and the team orders came in for Lando to give P1 to Oscar, and the reason that it happened was because the pit wall messed up the strategy. Like that's why Oscar had lost the P1 is because of the pit wall strategy. Wasn't because Lando was like out driving him necessarily, but the strategy was bad, and he ended up behind Lando, and Lando did as directed and gave the spot to Oscar, and then they cut to some video of Horner, and he's like, I guarantee Max doesn't give that spot back. And I just thought that was like so apt, It's like, I mean, you guys messed up the strategy, not me. I'm here to win races. Sorry, Oscar. Like that is exactly what Max would have done. Except he probably would have used some more colorful language. But anyway, so let's get back into the race here. So you were mentioning before about like the Saubers and stuff, and the backfield not being very entertaining. Probably the most exciting thing that happened that I saw in those back markers. Did you see when Bortoleto almost ended Fernando Alonso?
Yeah.
I mean, that was freaking dangerous. So for those who didn't maybe see it, it was, I can tell you where it was. It was
trying to find it on my notes.
Lap 25, and I didn't note the turn that it was in, but Bortoleto was trying to like I don't remember, was he up behind somebody else, or
I think it was Doohan. Wasn't he by Doohan?
Yeah, you might be right.
Yeah,
he was trying to get around Doohan or something, and
he didn't even see. Yeah, he didn't even see Alonso at all, and they cut across his bow. And if Alonso has gunslinger reflexes, otherwise I think they would have both been pancaked into the wall pretty bad.
They were going fast. I mean, this was not like coming together in a chicane or something like that. It was a left to right move by Bortoleto. Just didn't see Alonso coming up behind him, and Alonso was going to probably overtake, and he just gave him. I mean, it was one car width exactly between him and the wall, and Alonso squeezed through there, and he came on the radio and he's like, "Check my car." I was really close. So anyway,
I mean, you could stick a credit card in between their two cars.
Yeah,
when they went, insane. At the moment of the move. Yeah.
That was a hair-raising moment for that back marker group, and maybe one of the more entertaining things that happened back there. After a pit stop, Piastri had a pass on Lewis in turn 23. Did you see that one? That was a hell of a pass right there. He went around the outside.
Yeah.
And man, what a move. That is not known for being a passing turn right there. So
that was lap 21. Are you talking about the one during lap 21?
I had it noted as turn 23, but it could have been 21. It was around that time.
Lap 21, not turn 21.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right. It's between, it's around my other notes from that lap.
Yeah. The interesting thing too, I want to talk about was, when Piastri pitted, it was a 3.4 second stop. And then when Max pitted he pitted the lap, the 2 laps later, his was a 3.3 second stop. So Max had a slow stop because other people were pitting in the 2.3 second range. So that would have given him a second of that 5-second penalty back. Since he would have known by then that McLaren had a slow stop. But his team did another slow stop just like last week. Now, it wasn't because of the light like last week, but I wonder what's going on with Red Bull as far as those pit stops, because 3.3 seconds for a championship team, that kind of seems like a long stop, because he would have been closer. He might have gotten in front of Hamilton when he came out, which would have not held him back when he had fresh tires. He might have caught, Piastri. I don't know. But I wrote that down. I thought that was interesting. What did you think about that?
Yeah. So under ordinary circumstances, a 3.3 second stop isn't usually a deal breaker, but yeah, the margins for this particular race and with McLaren being that fast, They can't really afford to even be shaving off one whole second like that. Yeah, 2.2, 2.5, that's kind of, I think should be looking for a stop like that. It would have been nice to, if Yuki hadn't crashed out in lap one, we could have seen, is this a growing trend, or, was it just a one-off mess up? I sometimes wonder too, when a driver is serving a penalty, like Max was serving a penalty, does it throw off the rhythm at all of the pit stop? Because they're sitting there for a second, and then they have to wait for the clock to end. And are they, much like the start of a race, or you're waiting there with anticipation for that, light to go out, or in this case for the 5-second mark to hit exactly and then make the switch. I don't know. That could have been why they lost a second there. I think, I'm guessing that has something to do with it. I mean, that just knowing how my brain works anyway. Obviously, I'm not a pit stop mechanic, but if they aren't Johnny on the spot, like right then when it hits the 5-second, then something that could throw them off, I guess. So I'm going to stray away from the race for just a second and talk a little bit about the course itself. I sort of started off with that, and this mention that I just had about Piastri passing Lewis on turn 23. It just brought up a couple things about this track. So first of all, they technically call this one a street track. I heard him talking on the commentary that like it is a street track, and these are streets that or the roads are used by traffic when the race isn't there, but it's like they built it all those roads specifically for Formula One, and then they just incorporated them into the road system in Jeddah, which is, first of all, very interesting. I don't know how you do that. That seems really weird. But the other thing is, they were during practice 3, they were talking to Jolyon Palmer, former F1 driver, about these corners, because Jeddah has the most turns of any circuit. It's got 27 turns, and Jolyon Palmer was really kind of taking issue with it, because like a lot of them aren't your traditional turns, right? They're these long, full flat out type corners that actually it's like a sweeping long turn. So I don't know. I was going to get your thoughts about that. One of the things Jolyon Palmer was saying, and I think maybe even David Coulthard were saying during the commentary at various points, was like, you usually think of a turn or a corner as one where you have to slow down to make the turn, right? Like to get around it. And some of these it's just pedal in, the whole way, and you're just going through these turns at full speed. So, and that, again, this is why I like this track. This is my favorite thing about it. It's just flat out, seeing the agility at high speed of these cars. But anyway, do you have any thoughts about that? Does Jolyon Palmer have a point in that case about are they counting too many of these sweeping corners as actual turns that aren't really turns?
I think if you turn the steering wheel, it's a corner. Somebody might be more aggressive and say you have to have an apex, an entrance and an apex and an exit for it to be a corner. To me, if you have to turn your wheel to stay on the track, it's a corner. So if it's a slalom, it's still a corner. Turn 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's fair game. I hadn't really seen this track before today. It was a fun track, and I'm kind of glad that when we kind of talked over text yesterday, and we kind of talked a little bit about it. It allowed me to kind of see it through those eyes, and it's super fun. A lot of lateral G's, high speeds. I was watching. They were topping 200 miles an hour today. So that's impressive. It's good stuff. So, you go from Bahrain last week, long straights, a curve, and then a long straight, that kind of thing, to now it's just a ziggly wiggly thing. Super fun. It was definitely, it was a race that showcases the agility of the car. Let's say it that way.
Yep. Yeah, that's why I love it so much. And I also sometimes I get in my mind and I'm like, man, I would love to drive on this thing. Like uh, driving a car fast on a straight isn't really fun, right? I don't think, or driving the go-kart or whatever. The straight to me isn't that fun. Going through a turn and pushing it as fast as it can go, that's fun. And that's what I see in this track. It's very demanding and, you know, like you said, a lot of agility there. And then, there's jeopardy with this track too. It's narrow. It's not a very wide track. So I noted too that the commentators mentioned that this is the fastest street circuit on the calendar, and it really is one of the fastest tracks in general. The only faster track is Monza, so with higher average top speeds. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And I will say, to kind of bring us back towards the race now, I'm pretty sure that when Charles made the move that he did to get around George Russell, if I'm not mistaken, it was he was doing 200 on that pass. I mean, that's a heck of a speed to be doing an overtake. Pretty crazy. So okay, so I've been kind of doing a lot of the chatting, and I do have a few more notes. But I feel like, is there anything you wanted to bring up? Anything that you noted from the race that you thought was noteworthy that we need to talk about?
I mean, we've pretty much covered most of my notes as well. I wanted to talk about, the back teams, Haas, Williams, Alpine, Sauber. So we were able to do that. The Yuki Gasly collision, the lights going out quickly, Max's penalty, Antonelli moving up. I thought, he did okay. Well, he brushed the wall, but it doesn't look like he did anything serious to the car. But I thought he had a pretty good day, all things considered. And then trying to see if there's anything else. 2026 rules. I've got some notes on that if we have time. And then, that's pretty much everything I have. Yeah. I did, by the way, I did write Hamilton underperforming. That was what I wrote for my race notes. To answer your earlier question. Yeah. But still give him like 5 more races and then we can worry about the guy.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, P5 and 6 for Mercedes wasn't a nightmare of a day, but they have been in P2 in the Constructors' Championship, and this isn't great for them. This was a better day for Red Bull, I guess, in Max taking P2 and Ferrari with the P3 and P7. I guess I don't know what the net number of points is for 3 and 7 versus 5 and 6, but I'm guessing that I think it's a little more for a Ferrari on the day.
Is it 10 for third place? I think you get 10. Is it 25? What is it? 25, 15, 10? Is that?
No, 25 for first, 18 for second,
18.
15 for third.
You can tell I'm not a Formula One guy. I'm a IndyCar, you get like 50 points.
So I got it right here. So total of 18 points for the Mercedes finishing P5 and P6. 15 points for Leclerc in third, and 6 points for Hamilton in seventh. So a total of 21 points for them. So they outscored Mercedes by 3 points. Ferrari did. So pretty decent day for Ferrari. Them being on the podium, though, I think was just a better. That's just good for them. Like if we want to see the battle from Ferrari, they've got to get these guys up on the podium with frequency.
Yep.
So yeah, I will say too, Lawson ended up he got a 5-second penalty. I think it was too, for the same thing that Max got, which was leaving the track and gaining an advantage. So that was another thing that kind of hurt Lawson. You know what I mean? We were talking a little bit about him before.
He's probably not going to be around next season, I don't think.
Yeah, that would be a bit of a bummer. And the reason I would say, I mean, I feel like a lot of the blame goes to the Red Bull management for messing with his head. So that would be a bummer if they ditch him.
I would have left him in the second car. I wouldn't have pulled him. I wouldn't have switched him out with Yuki. I would have left him in the car, you got to give him more than 1 or 2 races. Like, give him some time. It's just like, it's exactly like Hamilton, right? I mean, if if the guy is just stepping up into the bigger team or the the A team, I guess, give the guy some laps before you
Right.
cut his knees out from under him.
Yeah. I guess my take on the matter, and we talked about this on previous, episodes, is that it was a mistake to have brought him up in the first place. Just knowing that they needed somebody to score points a lot and quickly to be competitive in the second Red Bull. Frankly, they were taking too much of a gamble, and I think they just admitted that after 2 races, like, oh shoot, we thought he'd be putting in points and he's not even close, and so they had to send him back down. Now Yuki, he hasn't. It's not like he's dominating or anything out there, but I think he was on the way up, but then he didn't finish this race, so this is a bummer. Now, that's the other thing that I already talk about, how Piastri has not cost the team any money in repairs for over a season, so that was a bummer too. I on a previous episode, I made a guess. I think it was 2 episodes ago. I guessed that he was going to put it in the wall and they was going to finally cost them some money. So I missed that one by two races. Not exactly a fun, bold prediction or a good thing to revel in. But and he's been driving solidly, so that was also another bummer to see that Pierre ended up in the wall. I don't know how they compute these, like which driver cost who money. If it was judged that he got took out by Yuki, then I think he still should have a clean streak if it wasn't his fault. But I don't know. We'll get that level of adjudication on it. So, okay, we need to wrap up soon, but I want to hear some of your highlights from the 2026 regulation research that you did.
Okay, yeah, real quick. So the cars are going to be smaller. They'll have a shorter wheelbase. They'll be narrower, so width wise, they'll be skinnier cars. More attention to detail on the under tray. More active aero, so they'll be able to move things around. There will be a 50-50 power split between ICE and electric, so the engine will be generating more than 50%, but like 55-60%, and then the electric motor, instead of only generating right now, I think it's 150 or so horsepower, 160 horsepower, will be it'll be responsible for 400 or 500 horsepower, so it'll be pretty significant. The tires will be narrower front and back. And then DRS is going to be replaced by the active aero. You'll have like an X configuration. I think it's X and Z configuration, where one is for maximum downforce corners, and then one is slipstream for straights. And then there will be an overtake button, which is a lot like IndyCar. IndyCar has an overtake button as well. They call it push to pass.
Is the overtake button, is that engaging electric, or is that?
Yeah, it's tied. Yeah, it's tied to the electric. I'm pretty sure. But the other call out I had though is, with the cars being smaller, they're also then going to be lighter. So that the cars have just gotten heavier and heavier and heavier. So this is going to make them lighter. Hopefully that also means that we'll make them faster. And I'm also secretly hoping that makes Monaco a little bit more entertaining, because Monaco is just basically a parade until the cars get smaller. So, making the cars smaller will be good. And then last thing to call out is 3 new manufacturers or OEMs are coming in next year. You've got Audi basically taking over for Sauber. You've got Ford will be the engine for Red Bull. And then Cadillac will be its own team. They're coming in to be their own team. There's a lot of rumors flying around about who's going to drive for Cadillac. Couple IndyCar names like Palou and Award have been kind of mentioned. Herta has been mentioned. I actually don't think it's going to be an IndyCar driver. I think it will be one of the current F1, in the current F1 world that we already know, either this year or last year. I think it'll be some familiar names from that area. So that's 2026. I mean, it's still a long ways off. I'm looking forward to it because I love it. I love shakeups in autosport because, dominance early can sometimes be from out of left field. It's kind of like when Jensen Button, he was just tearing the doors off of everybody in the Braun car. It's because they had a technological advantage. I mean, he's a good driver, but he won that championship on the back of a better car. So it's always fun to see who's going to come out of the woodwork early and have the answer, and then who's going to like make up the tech as they go and adapt. So 2026 will be fun.
I mean, the last rigs definitely set Merc back, right? Like, I mean,
yeah,
they were dominant. The new rigs came out and they could not control the porpoising, and they just fell back. And had that not happened, I think we'd still see Lewis in a Mercedes. I don't think he would have left, but they weren't getting enough progress for him. So yeah, the new rigs should be interesting. I like what you said. I have to admit, as soon as you said that the cars were going to be smaller, I was like, Monaco.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
I don't think
not significantly
be smaller.
I think it's like
yeah.
I want to say it's like 10 centimeters narrower, and then the wheelbase is smaller, which then pulls the the overall length of the car down. But anytime you can shrink the size of the car, it is a good thing. The cars are massive. I mean, they're huge right now, ridiculously large for what they are. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, it almost if you were to look at an early Formula One car and compare it to you wouldn't think they were driving in the same class, right? Like it's just the cars today don't even look anything like those old open wheel cars.
Yeah, stand next to a Lotus stand next to a Lotus that looks like a cigar with wheels,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say too, like I have said for a long time they need to have like a special car for Monaco. Like they should just abandon the Formula One car, because the race and the venue are so historic and it's so cool there. Like everybody recognizes it. Even people who don't, watch Formula One recognize it from like Iron Man 2 or whatever, like they've seen it or heard about it. And so they should just make a different car, or like put them in some fancy go-karts or something. Like like make it an event that people want to watch. Cause right now it's a boring race, man. They gotta do something about it. It's, the qualifying is everything for that. And then, if it's raining or if somebody crashes, then it might shake things up a little bit, but that's just a might, like there's no even guarantee that that's going to make it anymore. Like if it rains, sometimes it's just a slower version of an already boring race. So I don't know, man. I hate to abandon it. I don't know that they should cancel it, but if they just did a Monaco car, maybe even hop in a sports car.
Yeah, it's but I actually think that's a clever idea. You've got like an alternate car with alternate rules. Like, okay, this is the box, that you can build within. They have like a box, the dimensions. Okay, for this race, this is your box.
Yeah.
Your the width of your wheels, like everything has to be compressed down. That's a hot take from you. I don't know how the listeners are going to feel, but I think it's actually a pretty clever idea.
If they could do anything to keep it and then make it a more interesting race, I mean, that's an expensive idea. That would be a lot of like work to like have a completely separate car. But I don't know if they had something to start with or whatever. Like I said,
could they make it not a points race? Like take it off the calendar as a points race, but it's still a place they go to race, where it's like, maybe instead of a points race, it's like I don't know, just like a purse, you get a cash prize at the end,
Yeah. Kind of like that. Didn't they do that with IndyCar a couple of years ago? They had a race at some racing club race at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, that was last year they went to Thermal, and it wasn't a points race. This year they went back and it was a points race. But I would actually compare it to what we're talking about more to the Indy 500, because anybody can enter the Indy 500. You don't have to be a team that runs the normal season. You can just come and, I mean, it's a lot more complicated than showing up with a car like, back in the old days, but like you and me could, do a Kickstarter and field a team for Indy if we really had the punch to do it. So you could do Monaco like that, where it's kind of like just invite everybody to show up and do it. Here are the regs. If you don't want to build a car, it's not on, it's on the calendar, but it's not part of the points. So it doesn't matter if.
Or here's another thing they could do with it. I mean, maybe this episode's taken a turn that we didn't anticipate. But here's another thing that came to my mind, is like, okay, run one car, but do 24 hours of Monaco, and it's the 24-hour race of Formula One, and you add refueling and shift changes, and you run your 2 drivers and the reserve driver in a 24-hour race. And, maybe then you would see some, obviously viewership might not be great, at least not for the first 22 hours. But if that shook up the order a little, made it so it wasn't just like, okay, we're going to go follow each other around for 50 or 60 laps or however long the race is. And then, call it a day.
This is Brainstorming with Don and James. Guest star PK.
I'm hoping maybe if somebody from the FIA hears this, they'll be like, "This guy's got some good ideas."
There you go. You're going to get a call,
and then I can get a new job doing something.
There you go.
Interesting.
There you go.
All right. Well, Patrick, this has been a fantastic 2 weeks. I can't thank you enough for sitting in and talking. And you did a great job. And I'm sure there's going to be other opportunities down the road, so to speak. And I would love to have you back when you can.
Yeah. Happy to be a reserve driver. Thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
All right. Adios, Patrick.
All right. Have a good one.